starting up, getting it going.
Welcome.
Welcome.
What is welcome? Is it like a well?
Everybody's welcome.
Everybody's welcome for sure. All four directions.
Mm-hmm.
But what is well is not enough. It needs to be great. A great come.
It's a great come. Great come, everybody. Great come to the podcast.
That was a funny little jokey.
We have a quote.
Oh, right. We have a very serious quote for this episode.
Wait, what episode is this? This is a shambles.
This is 45.
45.
Yes, it is.
This is the 45th episode of Spoken Openness, and we are going to begin this podcast with a quote here. We're commencing it with a comment.
Mm-hmm.
The comment
that was a comment that the author made on Facebook, actually. Right? No.
Pardon me?
You're going to read a comment that someone made? A comment? No.
Am I?
That's what you said. That it's a comment.
Here's the quote.
Okay.
No action can be virtuous unless it is freely chosen. And that is Murray Rothbard, who I believe is dead.
Who I believe just passed away.
Did
last
he?
week. No. He's been out of the game for a while.
This is Murray Rothbard. He 1995. Oh, no. 1995.
Mr. Rothbard.
Mr. Rothbard, and this is the libertarian voice.
He maybe wouldn't like you calling him that.
Okay. All right. He's a commentator on politics, on freedom, on the role of the state, on economics.
Yep.
And the quote again is, "No action can be virtuous unless it is freely chosen."
No action can be virtuous.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not the one deciding to do something that's considered to be good, if it's not your decision, then you're not a good person. Then that doesn't make you a good person.
What if it's someone else's suggestion? It's just a great suggestion, and you're gonna like, okay, I like that.
Yeah, I mean, in that case, I think
does that work?
Maybe you were influenced, but you weren't coerced. It's still your decision to do something, right?
Right, and that's a big difference. And I think this is what really matters.
Where's that line? Because if suggestion, when does suggestion become so widespread?
Right. When does suggestion become inception?
Yeah.
Also, because influence could be direct or indirect, and it could have as a final consequence a negative outcome, and even after the consequence, people don't notice where the influence came from. This is a thing with cults and cult-like figures.
Yes, and with creating like music or creating art, you're like, I don't really know where my influences came from.
Yes.
Or your kind of your psyche and subconsciousness is melding together what you consider to be the ideal or something that you consider to be very good, and then you're producing something that is influenced by that. So if you think that that people are making or saying things that you should do, and then you have the free will, but then decide to do that, it's like you don't know where those influences came from.
Well, we also have extreme cases of divine suggestion, where people think and believe that they're having a heavenly suggestion.
Definitely.
For example, Moses, he knew in his heart he needed to build the ark. And
Tesla.
And Tesla, exactly.
A lot of people who invented stuff, they're like, I didn't make this. I just like saw it all of a sudden in my psyche, and I had all the blueprints. It's always blueprints.
Yeah, from dreams or sudden downloads or
Yeah.
just daydreaming, and out of boredom comes a beautiful idea. You're just there to catch it. This is, I think, the whole David Lynch idea about creativity, that you're just like a fisherman, just waiting for that thing to bite the hook. And now you just have to be there to roll it back, be the fisherman.
McKenna also talked about that your job was to be a fisherman of ideas, and to go into the depths and to not be taken by an idea so big that it pulls you under and sucks you into the abyss, but small little ideas that you can wrestle into your boat, and you can integrate them into the world, and you can use them, and that's a beautiful thing to do.
Sometimes ideas really pick you, they embrace you, they hunt you even. And, it's up to you to, I guess, choose your ideas wisely. Because then those ideas will become regular thoughts, just like regular guests in your house. Yeah. And those thoughts, those guests in your house will start moving things around. Maybe some of them will want to hang a frame that you don't really want to be hang there, move a chair, move furniture around even.
Damn. Yeah. Stop.
Why? Yeah, exactly. So you just got to choose wisely who enters your sacred space.
Right, because it's hard to kick some metaphorical idea guests out of your psyche, because when an idea gets into your head, that thing it's hard to get rid of an idea or a thought.
An idea or a thought in your head, or a foreign substance in your body.
Don't think about pink elephants.
Now you're there. You're in Pink Elephant Island.
You are, yeah.
You're flying around naked. Well, no, that was just that was just on my
and now
my
I am,
imagination.
because you said it.
Exactly. There you go. Now that was aggressive.
I'm trying to get that one out now. I'm trying to take that one out. But
exactly. You can't.
How dare you?
Right. So how is someone able to say that their decisions are not influenced at all? It's just not possible. They can't.
You can't say that. You can't say that.
So where's the line between voluntarism and cooperation and just plain, I guess, programming?
I think the line that's drawn in this quote is in the action, in an action. So it's talking about no action can be virtuous unless it is freely chosen. So it's saying like no action. It's like if you're going to do something, you're going to do a thing, you're going to use will to change something in the physical world, or to heavily influence something in the idea world, or to do something.
Yeah.
Not a mass. But if you're doing that, if no one is forcing you, then it's freely chosen.
Yeah. It's
so
just
I think it's
lack of coercion.
It's the force. It's maybe a way to determine whether it's forced or not is to say that there will be a punishment if you don't do the thing. Maybe the decision or the way of determining whether something is forced or not is by figuring out the punishment or the threat of punishment that is associated with the action. And the higher degree of punishment, the more you're forced to do it, maybe.
And I guess Mr. Rothbard would say, and since you have to enforce the penalty, that has a cost. And who pays the cost of enforcing the penalty for what shouldn't be done?
Right, and the repercussions, and we can get into that. But I think that's a different convo. I think that
Totally, yes.
the
yes,
convo
agree.
here is like you can't claim to be a virtuous actor if you're being threatened to do the thing that you're doing.
And I'm adding to that, if your decision is not fully based on your own analysis of possible outcomes and consequences and causes. So if you're making a decision that did not take into account at least most variables in the scenario, then your decision is not, as Mr. Rothbard is saying, how is he framing it, as being a free choice?
Can be virtuous, unless it's freely chosen.
It's not freely chosen if you didn't have all the variables to take into account. Maybe because they weren't available, or you weren't shown.
But if you don't have all the info, you're still choosing things freely. You're not being forced to not choose or choose.
Maybe, but what if I tell you, hey, water or coffee?
Water.
But actually, in the fridge, I had lemonade. I have orange juice. I have,
but I'm still.
It's your choice. Is not completely really.
Dude. It is. It's if you said, "Hey, water or coffee." That's what he's talking about. He's not talking about not saying other options. He's saying you're forced to do.
Yes.
You're forced.
Yes.
If you don't, it's like, hey, are you gonna get coffee? I will put you in prison if you don't get it. Then you're like, well.
yeah. That's the combo for sure. I agree.
But he's saying that he's talking about I think what I like about this quote is that he's talking about virtue. So it's like if everybody is forced to do something good, they can't claim to be a good actor because they're doing it by force. Yep. Nobody has a choice. It's if you have a choice to do the thing, that's what makes you able to be considered a virtuous actor. And
right, but also if I tell you half of the story so that you're most likely to agree, then your choice to agree isn't really free at all. That's, I guess, also my point.
You're talking about the line, and I think that's the line of influence, coercion, that kind of
because
thing.
I totally understand.
Because that's still not force.
But I think that's where force really, really plays its best hand, so to speak. So, because if you're talking about specific, very clear, very direct coercion, that's just direct violence. It's easy to counter, let's say.
We can't, but we have to be very clear about what we're talking about when we're saying force. Like, just not adding other info is not a forceful act. That's maybe a manipulative act, but force is I'm threatening you with violence or something, and in this situation it would be considered your body or your property or your safety. That's force. Is if some of that is threatened or is
so
currently
I agree
messed with.
We should focus on this instead of like
I
subtlety
think it's more,
of sketchy manipulative tactic. I agree.
I think that's more interesting, but I just think that we
Yes.
shouldn't call that force.
Yes, okay.
Is all I'm
yes.
saying.
But what happens when force...
May the force be with you, by the way, brother.
May the force be with you, bro. Okay, so
Nice.
the force...
Yeah.
You can use the force
Cool. How?
if the force, as long as you can use it as freely as you want to use it, as long as the
Okay.
force doesn't create a conflict with someone else's use of their force. So
What?
you can use the force. May the force be with you, as long as your use of the force does not conflict with someone else's use of their force.
No. So I consider the term. So let's ignore the "May the Force be with you"
course,
because
yeah,
that's
that's
like
confusing.
That's like magical powers.
Yeah.
When we're talking about force, it implies in the term force that you are impinging on somebody else's freedom or safety. So it's like I don't
agree.
think there's any way of. Yeah,
I agree.
I don't. So
I
we
think
can't say,
Mr.
like,
Lucas
use
should have
force.
written "May the light be with you." That would be
Okay.
That would have been
We could-
little more. No, but this is the theme. What he's actually playing about the government coercion. How far can
But I do think-
authorities take it?
Words are so annoying because I think people can still be a force. Like that person is a force of nature.
Yes. Yeah.
But
This is also with the thing with
English.
English. One word can have
But
so
that's-
many
yeah.
different meanings.
Right, but that's not using force. I think if you say using, I don't think anybody would be like they're a force of nature and they use that force on other people. I
Yes.
think then it's like, wait a second. I think you're saying that maybe people don't want that force on them.
Well, this is the debate also. I think we've talked about this around toxic masculinity and the
I don't think so, but-
validity of aggression in toddler play and father-son relationship. All of that, I guess.
Sure.
I mean, there is an aggressivity aspect to nature, even where you can sometimes, I guess, find a positive use of force, but maybe aggression, because force, as we are defining it, is literally the act of overstepping someone else's free choice.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so
Yeah.
what I'm afraid of is when that happens citizen to citizen, it is usually pretty clear what needs to be done. You can figure it out on an individual level, or you can take it to a legal court or whatever, or even fight it out. Sometimes that's the answer, I guess.
What are you talking about?
Coercion conflict. When it's
Okay.
caused individual to individual, the rules are way more clearer as to how to resolve the use of force.
You're kind of talking about the non-aggression principle.
The non-aggression principle
If
is
someone
basically what
infringes
we're
on
talking about. Like that would be the synonym
if
for
right.
what we're meaning when we say force right now.
If someone uses force on somebody else
Yeah.
in society,
Yeah, exactly.
but yeah,
So I'm trying to contrast that when authorities, and I'm not saying necessarily your government or your local whatever, it could be the school, it could be any authoritative figure or entity or system.
Stephen King, he's a very prolific authoritative.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the levels of productivity that guy is having in his writing endeavors, it's crazy. So he would be a great example of an authoritative
author.
figure. So
Authoritative author.
yeah, basically you're on point. that's, I guess, where I think there's a lot of debate, conversation, wave potential in when the non-aggression principle gets broken in a different hierarchy, power hierarchy.
Sure.
So just throwing it your way after framing it in a comparative manner.
Yeah, I think that I'm going to catch the ball with the non-aggression principle. I shouldn't have brought it up. I don't really want to have a conversation about anarcho-capitalist or libertarian philosophy. I feel like I don't really know how to get into that.
I don't think it necessarily needs to get into that. We're talking about non-aggression principle by saying that your free choice gets obstructed by someone else's free choice.
Ivan, look at this. It's a great idea I have. What I think is the most interesting about this quote, and maybe I can flow into this and maybe we can jump on it, or we can, whatever angle we want to stay on, but I'm a little fixated on this element of it.
Let's go.
It's the element of virtuousness. That's the element to me that is the most interesting. It's the element that if you're forced to do something good, then you aren't a good person necessarily. You're somebody that was forced to do a good act. It's kind of like, there's that idea of like, if you are weak, you're not virtuous. It just means you're incapable of doing anything. Like someone who's very weak and doesn't have the capacity for strength and to use it. If you don't have that capacity, you're not a good it's not like you're not violent. It's like you're just incapable.
Yeah.
But if you have strength and you say, like, just taking it so basic of like physical strength, if you are some strong like person who knows martial arts or whatever, and you don't use it if you're in an argument and you solve something peacefully, that's a good behavior. But if you're just like this is so basic, but if you're physically weak and you don't do violence, you're not a good person. It's just you could be viciously like use it, like if you could you would, but you're just like I can't. That doesn't mean you're a good person. That just means you're incapable.
Yeah, I think I have a great little quick thing to share around what you're saying. I think I get it. In Spanish, we have a word that can be translated as useless. But most people would say it's an insult, inútil. Most people would say that's an insult.
That's like utilization is in there somewhere, like you can't be utilized?
That's useless, inútil. Not useful. And so it is kind of like it is an insult, but I'd like to joke that it's an adjective basically, because it actually literally means that you aren't able to put yourself to good use in any way or in what you're trying to achieve. So I guess I love that word because it's precise and it's not good. It's not good to be not useful. It's like so in us to look for how we can serve or solve or provide value.
Yeah, so there's almost like there's a few steps or a few ground layers that need to be agreed upon for what we want is a world where everybody is on some similar page about what's good and what's bad in terms of what people have an idea about what's moral and immoral, and that people are voluntarily choosing to do things that are quote unquote good versus bad, right? In order for that to occur, because you can't have people thinking they're doing good but harming lots of people. You can't have that.
Okay.
That's bad.
Okay.
So a few of the steps that need to come into place in order for something like this to be occurring is the first step is people need to be on the same page about what virtue is.
Yeah.
About what that even is and agree upon that. The second layer is people need to be voluntarily choosing to do that. So those are the two steps, and to voluntarily be able to do that, there needs to be what does there need to be? A maximization of proper information and a minimal amount of suggestive or coercive messaging.
So this is the importance of free speech and open information.
And the importance of autonomy in decision making.
Yes, yeah, right. But I guess what we're both figuring out is that autonomy in decision making is what constitutes the act of choosing freely. Like it's a synonym. Choose freely or be autonomous in your decision making. If you do that, you are virtuous.
No. That's not what this says.
No?
No, you're virtuous if you do a virtuous thing while being autonomous. But you can be autonomous and do non-virtuous things, but then all of the immorality is on you. This is just saying
you repeat that?
You can be this is saying you can be autonomous and do something good or bad. If you do something good, then you are actually if you do something good, you're actually virtuous. If you do something bad, you are the one responsible, so you are the immoral actor. But it's saying that if that the impetus or the validity that it's you that is the good or bad person gets reduced the more you are forced to do the thing. So you can be autonomous and do something good. You can be totally autonomous and do something bad. But if you are autonomous, it's all on you. But if you are coerced and you do something good, this quote is saying then you can't claim to be a good person because you're not autonomous.
Right.
But just because you're doing something autonomously doesn't mean you're
right.
good. It means the opposite.
Right. You could be the intellectual author of something horrible.
Yeah, or you could be actually doing something bad.
Exactly.
You could be like, I'm autonomous and I think it's good, but you're...
Right.
Yeah, so just the act of doing something autonomously is not good. It doesn't mean you're good.
Yeah.
And then you have to have the discussion, would we rather have people were forced into not doing bad things? But...
No, but I think that's exactly where the discussion falls apart, because...
falls apart.
Yeah. Because if you start forcing someone to do a good thing, you need to enforce the thing. You need to.
Yeah, and
right. You need to create a penalty, and then who pays for the penalty, and how does it get enforced?
I'm not talking about pay. We're talking about where does the moral weight lie? We can talk about force if you want. I mean, about the system of how that would play out. But you can't argue for one thing.
I'm
not arguing for anything. I'm saying that I'm saying that if a state or if a group forced individuals to do something good, then those individuals are not acting as individuals.
Yeah.
And it's entirely the thing that's forcing them. All of the moral weight is on that thing.
Yeah.
It's not on the individuals. So if it's something good, then the individuals can't take any claim for doing that good thing. If it's a bad thing, that's where it's like...
Yeah.
You have to do both, though. It's harder for me to say.
So, okay, but
it's harder for me to say if the individuals do something bad that it's not if they're being forced, it's not their thing. But it's like kind of also, you have to do both.
Right.
You can't have one, you can't have one without the other.
That's kind of also my thing. You can't have one without the other when I say, okay, but who's enforcing the thing? And also, of course, like that, I feel like that's an obvious follow-up. Who's where does the budget comes from, right? But let's not go there even. So what I'm saying is, if you decide that you don't want to go along with something that's being currently enforced,
Yeah.
whatever it may be, if that's being enforced by another individual, that I feel like that's pretty, like, you're either a victim or a possible victim, or you're in a negotiation of some sorts. But what I'm trying to get to is, if that's being enforced by an institution, that's why I was bringing up the institution thing back then, because if you're not on equal level now, you're not individual versus individual or citizen versus citizen, you in so many cases now will be considered a criminal just because you're trying to
Of course, that's the
make
force.
a free choice. Yeah, exactly.
That's the force of it.
So as soon as you're labeled a criminal, your capacity to continue to choose freely gets even more stepped over, and the playing field is way less leveled.
Here's the thing I agree. And
that's why I was like trying to be careful when we take a step from, okay, it's good to enforce something that's morally positive.
I've never said that.
No, I know, but we were kind of contemplating that.
No, but that's what I want to talk about.
Okay,
I want to talk about the idea that if you are say a government or a state, and let's give all benefit of the doubt and say that what they want to do is actually very good, and it's virtuous, and it's moral, and it's flawless. There is no issues at all, and what they want to do is good, and they're forcing everybody to do that.
So what's the stake? Do we have like a big stake? They're saving the world from
sure. Or let's go with the extreme, even if it's something really basic and small. Let's say it's really small, and it's not a massive thing, but it does something that makes everything a little bit better.
Is this like the trolley paradox?
No, this is a totally different situation.
I'm following.
Let's say that is the case. Are they a good actor? And I guess people who value autonomy would say no, but if you're talking about consequentialism, or it is kind of a symbol. It's like it's the same scenario.
Okay.
Or not the same scenario, but it's
same.
It's
moral.
a moral decision about individual versus collective. It's like a utilitarian decision.
Yeah.
But does that make it good to force people if the net positive is totally better?
How could it do so? Like, what would be the best way to articulate it? It's basically, I think, the best way to go about communicating this message is in a balanza, in like trying to measure weights between what's worse. Trade-offs. Yes, thank you. It's a trade-off. So you're saying we're gonna do this that is it's not, I guess it's not morally it's not okay to enforce people to do things. Yeah. But we had a guy not as bad as this.
Definitely. We had a guy come to our school and he was talking about, I can't remember what he was talking about, and I don't even know if this is accurate or how they determine this statistic or anything like that. So that's just a preface on this thing. But he said that if everybody didn't eat ice cream for 1 year, that amount of money could solve world hunger.
Like he's saying everybody in the world? No ice cream for a year?
Everybody just don't eat ice cream for 1 year. The amount of money that would have been spent on manufacturing, selling, marketing, buying, all of that money you could solve, and you could get a sustainable solution to world hunger. You could have, supplies and
well, I guess people would have to donate their ice cream money instead of not saving, instead of not buying the ice cream. They would have to actually buy, like.
No, let's just
donate.
imagine let's just
Yes.
imagine the cost of manufacturing, transport, packaging, industrial.
Now ice cream companies are
collecting.
charity companies. In this.
This isn't a scenario about the fucking.
Sorry, I'm trying to find a hole.
Company. I'm just.
Yes.
It's a metaphor for what we're talking about.
This is what the guy said. Okay, if we don't eat ice cream for a year,
if we don't eat ice cream for a year, I'm talking about a personal. Hunger. I'm talking about a trade-off. Mm-hmm. Here's a trade-off. Mm-hmm. It's gonna suck. You can't eat your sweetie dairy. Okay, you can't eat your little sweet for a year. Mm-hmm. Okay, that sucks. It's not that crazy. It's not like, it's not a massive ask, but if that was by force, and this is a scenario where there's a trade-off, relatively small, but it could be if it was forced and literally saves millions of people worldwide who are dying of hunger. Is that morally good to do that? That's like I was trying to find an extreme case of the argument of this scenario, or of this moral equation.
I would say there's a similar scenario that would be even more moral.
Okay.
Because ice cream makes people happy all year long.
Dude, don't start weighing the morality of people's happiness of a sugar spike and people dying of starvation.
No, but what I'm saying,
at least acknowledge that one would be better than the other.
Of course, but what I'm saying is this guy could have chosen something hard, like if people don't do heroin for a year. Yes.
Dude, come on, man.
Sure, no, I agree. But yeah, I mean,
that's not viable. You can't say it. We're talking about trade-offs. We're not talking about something that everyone would love to not do this.
I take it. I'll take it.
It's a trade-off.
Yes, yeah. I totally see how me shitting on the ice cream scenario was bad.
Do you love ice cream?
I mean, okay, I think I would justify that trade-off.
The ice cream trade-off.
But how would you go about having everyone on the same page?
Dude, let's not talk about logistics, all right? Let's talk. This is a cartoon scenario.
This is the problem with every.
It's a cartoon. Let's imagine this is a cartoon. It's fake. This is not real.
Yeah.
Let's imagine that people just didn't eat ice cream for a year. Let's not talk about who's enforcing this. How do we pay the cost?
Okay.
Let's just say that it's perfectly executed. Everyone says we're going to do this. They don't eat ice cream, and a magical system for solving the world hunger from that money emerges, and those people don't die. We're talking about millions of people.
We saved millions of people. Mm-hmm.
Save them. They're good.
Mm-hmm.
They're good and good.
Yeah.
So, is that a good thing that happened?
Yes. Yeah. But we don't know the specifics, so.
And if that was a good thing, wouldn't the institution that forced it have all of the morality on them, because they're forcing everybody else? According to this quote, the individuals, they can't be virtuous because they had no choice.
Exactly.
So the only thing that would be virtuous would be the actor of force upon the most number of people, but it would bring the most good in the scenario.
Theoretically, utopically, yeah. Conceptually.
Yeah, but this is conceptual.
Right, but that's the thing, for example, like switching gears. If we started to talk about socialism
or switching flavors.
Now we're talking about socialism
rum raisin.
Which is pretty similar to like fixing like what you're talking about. In this scenario, know that you are talking about it. I know it's not your thing, of course.
Yeah,
not blaming you for this.
Sure.
But it's pretty similar to saying like if we don't eat ice cream, then that wealth can be redistributed to saving.
Sure.
Because the variable that's not being contemplated here is that wealth can be created. It's not a zero-sum game. Someone can invent something tomorrow that creates new wealth. And a new train for a lot of people to jump into and not leave out of $1 a week or something like that, right?
I agree, but the ice cream scenario was not negating that fact.
What fact? Not negating
that wealth can be created. It's not a zero-sum game.
Okay.
All it was saying is here's a trade-off that we could do.
Okay.
Yeah. But I do agree that the notion that there's only a set amount of money and that it's all dog eat dog and that is an incorrect that is totally an incorrect picture.
And I feel like if we try to find common ground, the solution is always I'm sorry. The solution is always where we find that we don't agree, but the end outcome. For example, in a debate between a capitalist and a socialist, this is so abstract. I'm sorry that I'm doing this.
I know
so
we're going.
general.
Yeah, I don't. Let's not talk about socialism versus.
Okay, just try and think of a different example. In the same example, I'm just gonna use the same example. All we want to do is save a lot of people from dying from hunger this year, right?
Yes,
I feel like if we don't agree, maybe we disagree completely on how we're gonna accomplish that.
Yeah.
But if we do agree that that's the end goal, then we can work together. And that's I was gonna use the capitalist socialist one example in that to exemplify this thing that if we both agree we want to solve something that's effed up, we want to make something better, we want to improve something, we can find common place there, but then we might disagree into how are we going to accomplish that. For example, we want to save the world from a current event that's effing things up. But most people don't agree on how we're going to get there. And then we get into, do we need institutions to enforce behavior so that we get there, or like what's there, and that's the whole thing.
But the tricky thing is, even if there's a disagreement on the proper way to do it, if something was forced and it did generate a net positive good, isn't that a good act? And that's just what I'm tripping on here, is that even if it's so I think like I disagree with the notion that everybody should be forced to do something in order to do something that is agreed that it's good, but like I disagree with that. But my problem is I can think of the ice cream scenario and I can be like, I mean, that would be good if that happened, but I think it would be wrong to do the force. I think that's wrong. I guess I think
we're about to get to the same conclusion here.
And another thing you could talk about is like, okay, but the entity that has that ability to force everybody, why do you think it's always going to be a moral thing? Or why do you think it's always going to be, or who's to say that the endeavors are always going to be good endeavors? And if it's
I understand,
and that's a different combo.
It is a different combo, but it's linked. For example,
it's a different wave.
I got a little bit triggered when you said, let's not talk about logistics here, because that brought me back to a debate about capitalism, socialism that I had with a friend like a year ago, and he was telling me this, like, let's not go into specifics, let's not talk logistics, let's try to stay abstract and philosophical on this. And I'm not gonna go into specifics, but what I'm trying to exemplify is when you put me on the spot and you say just yes or no. Would it be moral to save all of these lives by enforcing everyone to not eat ice cream? And I said yes. I feel like that was naive. That was like me saying, ignore all possibilities of how this would be enforced, or not. Maybe not enforced. Maybe it would be magically voluntary. Well, no. Then no.
The argument is
exactly,
that it's not voluntary.
Yeah. So, if I would be a very well-studied historian and had way more intellectual authority, I could be like, no, it would be wrong because this would happen and this would happen, and it's been showed that when you try to do good through government enforced blah blah blah. And I think it does go around like the question, like just follow it up. Okay, you need to enforce it, then you need to create a penalty to enforce it, then you need a budget to hire police, have more jails, blah blah blah, logistics. And who pays for all of that? Working free people trying to make their own free choices, to go about their own free dreams and having their own property so that they can pay taxes on the things you want to enforce to save mankind.
Yes, but I'm saying give the worst logistics. Mm-hmm. Give the worst ones. It's awful. Everybody pays for it. They're trying to be free. They're forced. All the police are imagine a scenario where that
would create the opposite effect of what you're trying to accomplish. But
what I'm saying is, at the end, there's millions of people's lives who were saved of starvation and inconvenience and debt for people in a society has occurred.
But I think that's wrong.
I'm not saying this is good. Yeah. I'm not saying this is good. I'm not saying that.
No, but I'm saying.
I'm just saying that there is a benefit to speaking sometimes in hypotheticals to step back and to see and to me that's interesting, because I disagree with the use of force on lots of people, but I also have to agree that if more lives were saved, like actual lives to me are more valuable than someone having less money. And that's just
hold on, but I think that's also a slight misconception about.
I know it's a misconception, but a misconception about what?
About history.
I'm not making any claims about history. I'm making claims about a hypothetical scenario about ice cream.
Right, where you save people from starvation, right?
Yes.
So what I'm going with this is the fact that you want to save people from starvation is because you have wealth creation in other areas of the world, and now you're able to see oh well, if I can have 3 showers.
I'm not talking about economics.
No, but you're saying it's moral to save people from starvation.
Yes, and I'm saying that speaking about it hypothetically is helpful for conceptually thinking about these things from a standpoint of morality and exploring the ideas in that way. I was just saying that hypotheticals can help, and that logistics.
I'm with you.
People can imagine whatever logistics they want in a hypothetical scenario to make the other person's side be the most detrimental. It's easy where if it's a hypothetical, at least agree upon. You have to agree upon a scenario that, of course, is probably unimaginable if you're speaking in hypotheticals, because logistics are unknown, and you could just argue that the other person's logistics, you could be like, well, this is how that could be implemented where it works off worse. And so in a discussion of abstract, I'm just saying it's beneficial sometimes to agree upon something that's maybe not reachable given the logistics. But to say, let's imagine the logistics are beautiful, because the confusing thing for me in this situation is the fact that I agree that those lives being saved would be good, but I still think that it would be wrong to do that whole thing. And I wouldn't want that thing to be done, because I think the use of force on everybody is not a good thing to do.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm like, man, all those lives being saved, I mean, that would be great. And
also, how do we define saved? They didn't die. But you could also argue. But you could also argue that it's better to teach a man to fish than to give them a fish.
Yes, but in the hypothetical that I presented, and I know it's magical and stupid, was that there was a system put in place where it was a long-term change that was a consistent food supply that could be. It wasn't just buying a bunch of ice cream it wasn't just
right. Also, I'm not blaming you. I know you're not the author of this scenario, and by the way,
let's get out of the scenario.
But we did frame it as abstract and kind of
get out of it.
Silly, but worth it. But totally.
Let's get out of the scenario. It's been almost an hour. We should wrap up here. I got lost in this hypothetical. I think.
Yeah, I feel so compelled to. And I do think it's worth it that we
I know
dived into this thing.
Sometimes I feel like you're arguing with me as if I have a position that I don't have.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to do that. I'm not trying to say anything.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that this is a very confusing, morality. It's very hard to, I'm just playing around with ideas of virtuousness and morality, and it's confusing, man. It's confusing
Yes. But I do feel sorry, cut you off. It's confusing too.
That's okay.
It is a lot. What I find confusing is that I feel compelled to say yes. I mean, saving all of those lives. Yes, why not? Of course. But then I go, and I start, of course, rationalizing an example that by itself it's not meant to be. We're not trying to figure out the logistics of how we would go about that. Of course, we're not. So, but
there's so many variables. It's like,
if we don't talk about the solution, we just talk about the framing of the thing. Then we can figure out a lot of things, and maybe this is where I will try to wrap it up. The framing of the thing is that it's unfair that when people are dying of hunger on one side of the world, when people are experiencing wealth on another, I feel like that's implicit in the framing of the scenario, because now we want to save those lives as if we're responsible somehow for their.
No.
But okay, no. Let's say no.
There's no responsibility. No. It's just you're able to do something that you think is moral, so shouldn't we do it? That's what it is. It's not responsibility. We should you can. So we think it would be good. So we could agree to do that. Yeah, I don't know, man.
Sure. Yeah. Now we're gonna walk in a circle again, but
yeah.
200 years ago, more than 200 years ago, we were all living in today's standards of poorness, and then a freedom movement happened, and it happened around.
Dude, please don't you're gonna place the betterment of society on a freedom movement. That's
I guess I would call it capitalism.
Dude, or an evolutionary movement towards prosperity and getting better at managing our environment and tool using and random sparks of genius and innovation and chance and weather, good enough weather on the planet to have sustained civilized areas of prosperity.
No, I do think it's mainly an economic system related.
All right. Yeah. I think that I'm gonna think about the morality side of force and for good ends, but I agree that I just don't think it's right to make people do something, even if you think that it's a good thing, and that the most positive direction we could go is the layers of people agreeing on what's virtuous and have that most connected to anything that could possibly be truly morally good, which is that's a hard discussion to figure out. But everybody's on that page, and then allowing people to voluntarily and make those choices. And I would hope that we would live in a place where people would voluntarily, more often than not, choose to make those morally virtuous choices, and that would be the right situation, and that I would hope that we trended towards that kind of a world.
I do also think that openness and freedom in choice and information and exchange does create I would say better qualities around prosperity and
better environment
from
which people can garner the correct information for making decisions.
Yes, thank you.
100%. I agree. And sorry I put the words in your mouth.
I needed that. I agree.
Yeah,
thanks. That's it, bro. I think, I don't know. It seems to me that a great I guess evidence of how this works out that I've been trying to understand, but how the economic freedom index shows that the less government intervenes and tries to control their country's economy, the richer the people are, the more wealth that is created. So I might be wrong on this, but I feel like there's something going on where the more and I feel like this can be shown in actual data that countries put out, that the more that they create laws and try to control people's freedom, the less, I guess, less prosperity happens.
And you're tying moral prosperity to economic prosperity, and I guess that's a combo that you could argue, but
I keep trying to do that all over this episode. But that's okay. Yes,
that's okay.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I agree. If fundamentally forcing people to make moral choices doesn't make those individuals moral, then forcing them to do anything should follow a same trend. And that's a conversation. But just force is bad. Just let's not force. It's not force.
Yeah.
So thanks for the conversation. There's a lot there. There's a lot of waves from the mother wave,
sure.
The MW.
Yeah, but I do feel like, going back to the quote, being virtuous is a great North Star. It's a great thing to keep in mind, virtuousness. What does that mean, and why does it happen, and why is it valuable? And just, I don't know, just having that in mind can change everything. And
the main thing about it, I think, is who can claim to have virtue. Not if you're being forced. You're not being virtuous.
That's 100% clear on this one. Yeah. Not if you're not choosing freely, it's not virtuous.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You are.
And if you are being morally good, but not from your own heart, it's not virtuous also.
Yeah, it's not. You're not the
intellectual author of that kindness.
But and what we were getting to, and maybe, and my point here is, neither is the person forcing it anymore.
Yes.
Maybe they lose the right to be the moral body because of the force that they're putting on other people to do moral things.
Right.
And
so enforced morality is not morality.
Yeah, and I made the leap of just because people who are forced to do something virtuous, that means they aren't virtuous. I made the leap of saying, well, then all of that responsibility goes on the entity that's doing the forcing.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
in the case of virtuousness, they don't get to claim virtue anymore just by way of the force that they are putting on people. And so then nobody's being virtuous in a sense, even though the net effect could be positive. And that's where I get, that's confused. That's,
oh my God. And now I'm having a little bit of a realization, because I do believe that having everyone be autonomous in their decision making creates, over a period of time, the correct decisions and the correct behaviors. But in order for that to happen, we need open information. We need good information, and we need good debate. We need good conversation. So
okay, let's say that it you could make an argument that it's more likely that the environment would lead people to make better and
only if open
choices.
Information is possible.
Right. But we can't let's not make the claim that it would lead to utopia.
I love making these claims, bro. Come on, I love making them.
Okay. Listen.
Okay.
If everybody has more autonomy, the world is going to be perfect, and it's going to happen.
But also,
let's do it.
Also, if you control information or censor or limited, now you can argue even more that you need to enforce information because people don't know better. People are not making the correct decisions, so you need to enforce the correct decisions. Yeah. So, I mean, that's just a whole other level of justification that I feel is currently going on. Anyway, I digress. I apologize.
And I would like to talk about the idea of more disagreement. Is that a sign that there's more free thought, or what does if everybody is on the same page, is that about everything? Like and maybe it's a threshold of like everybody can be on board with one thing, but if everybody is on board with the same idea across the board, it's becoming hard to...
Well, if disagreement means that both parties are trying to be correct or find truth, then I guess that would be like conversation, debate taking place.
Yeah, I shouldn't...
That's good.
I'm thinking about waves, and I'll keep thinking I'll never be able to land the plane here.
We need to close it up. Okay.
Thanks for the conversation. It's been a little while.
A little. It depends on your perspective of time. And now we could get into that whole thing. Okay. All right. Let's not go there.
Episode 45.
Yep. See you on 46.
See you on 46. Have a good day.